Hey guys, this is National Master Kevin Yang back at it with another video. So this is against Chessleonmaster. So always a formidable opponent. Let's get to it. e4, g6, d4, bishop g7. So you've seen the modern so many times. Knight f3, d6. I'm not controlling the center. I'm just keeping it cool. Knight c3 and knight f6. So you guys might wonder, what happens if knight f6? Am I okay? Yes, I'm okay. So I could have also played knight f6, but you can really, switch the move orders. c6, knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5, and I castled. Castled, and here I made the move knight takes e4. Now, it might not be the best move, but it is a move, right? I could have also played b5. I could have also played d5. There are just so many moves to play. I could play bishop g4. I could play knight bd7, although that might run into e5. So I don't know. There are multiple ways to play the position. So I played knight takes e4, knight takes and d5. Knight bd2, or knight e to d2, my bad. So I feel like when we're looking at these two pieces in the position, at this point, one should say, I'm going to lose the two pieces, but what can I do, right? Which one is more valuable? That's what you need to ask yourself. And in this position, which one do you think is more valuable? I'm going to reveal my answer. The bishop. And here is why I say the bishop. The bishop is more valuable because, number one, it's an open position. What do I mean by open position? I mean, if the bishop goes to d3 and you play here, the bishops are going to fare better than the knights, right? The knights, they have to move like elves, and that's knights are okay, but they're better in closed positions. So think about it like that. I guess another reason to justify is that if you just look at this bishop right now, there is a certain amount of potential in it, right? The bishop can support d5. That's a big one. The bishop can control these central squares. So the bishop to me is just slightly more advantageous than the knight. So instead of knight e to d2, I would have suggested bishop to d3. But in the game, this is how it went down. I played bishop to e6, hitting the knight, knight to e3, wonderful, h6, and now I played the move knight to a6. So here was my thought process. I said, okay, I want to develop this knight. But after knight d7, I was worried about something like c4, and this pawn coming to d5. So I got scared, right? So I got scared, and I was like, oh, I don't like that. The pawns are coming. So I played knight to a6. Why? Well, if c4 happens, I could have knight c7, and I could also have the flexibility of maybe supporting the c5 pawn, just in case if it wanted to push. Then c4 came, and then queen to a5. And queen to a5 is basically saying, okay, well, I need to develop my pieces. So white has this threat of d5, and this bishop is not in a great spot. So what do? Right? The engine also brings up a very good point. G5 and F5, that is another thing that I could have considered, right? But I remember saying if after G5, bishop to E5, F6, bishop to G3, and F5, I was thinking, well, can't the bishop come back to E5? And the answer is yeah, it can. But I missed this move F4 in my calculations, saying if you take, I take, And if you move, I'll take that pawn on c4. And that's what I missed in my calculations. So I missed that, and I didn't think it was so great of me to push all those pawns ahead of my king. So I kept it. I played queen to a5 because I wanted to bring my rook over to d8 and put some pressure on this d4 pawn. Queen to c1, very interesting way to do it. I played rook f to d8. Now, some people ask me this question, which rook is better to put to d8? And I'm going to be honest, when I was deciding whether which rook to put to d8, I didn't see a difference. So what did I do? I went with my heart, and my heart told me to bring this rook to d8 because I envisioned one day that I would bring this rook to c8 and go for that queen. So that's what I thought. But this rook to d8 is also not bad because, well, just in case if this file never opens, right, the rook here on d8 is going to be fine. So it's all a toss-up of a combination of how the future is going to look for your pieces in determining which rook you place, or it's also just predicting what things do, right? Where things go, and how the flow of the game might turn out. So rook d8, rook d1, I brought my rook to c8, and now knight f1. And I have to say, I was kind of puzzled by this move knight to f1, but I saw that there was a clear threat, but I felt like, might have not been necessary to bring that knight back to f1, if you know what I mean. Because I personally think that this knight is very strong here. It prevents my knight from going places. It maybe supports d5 in the future. And it just does so much for white, right? This bishop looks very much powerless in relative to this knight. So I need to figure out a way to do it, and knight f1 gave me the window. I played g5, and I played queen to c7 after bishop d2. What I was planning to do is I was planning to play bishop to g4, except here there'd be bishop takes h6, and I was unsure if things would work out this way, but things do work out. I just didn't calculate hard enough. So bishop g4 was possible here, so that was something I could improve on. But after bishop d2, I played queen to c7, and I thought it was interesting this bishop came back to d2, because I personally thought the bishop would go to e5, and after f6, bishop g3, and then I would have to play f5 to make my bishop not look odd, and then the bishop would come back to e5. This is what I saw in my mind. I was like, the bishop's going to be around for a while. I'm not going to feel so great. But after bishop d2, I was actually very satisfied because I go back to c7. Well, I could also go to f5. I could also go to b6. I didn't know which one was best, and I thought they were all okay, so I just picked one. Queen to c7. Now I could have also went to f5 and to g6 and maybe gone for a kingside push. Could have been possible, but I played queen to c7 because I said, okay, I want to have clear threats when attacking this d4 pawn, and I also want to maybe play b5. That's just an interesting way to try to break up this good-looking pawn structure. And to be honest, in the game, I was expecting our friend Chessleonmaster to play bishop c3. No, it wasn't. I was thinking bishop c3, but now I just saw bishop takes c4. So, don't worry. I recognize things sometimes. And now bishop e3. So, you'll notice that the bishop is shuffling around, And I find this, it's obviously okay. But when you're winning a chess game, you want to progress, right? You want to make progress with each move. And I think the problem with, because the problem with Chessleonmaster's strategy here is, he's getting his pieces to the right squares, but the strategy is just not there, if you know what I mean, right? Like, I can see that, okay, these knights, they're getting to places. You could see, like earlier, where was it? Rook d1, right? If you looked at this position, I loved it. I loved it for white. But I think it's important to recognize, once you get to this position, you need to map things out. Is it going to be a3 and b4 that white's going to achieve? Is it going to be queen d2 and d5 that white's going to achieve? Like, I would say the piece placement, Chessleonmaster, you got it down. But in terms of planning, well, I mean, there's a bit of room for improvement for that. So, I mean, honestly, in this game, I didn't play my best. The opening was okay. It was mediocre at best. But I was just doing my thing, bringing my pieces out, right? Getting them to where they want to be. And I was trying to find a strategy, right? I had in mind that I was going to play b5. I had in mind that I was going to try to get this bishop to g4. I guess those kinds of ideas are to be developed, right? So you always got to keep the possibilities in your head, because there are so many ways to play a chess game, and to win a game, the thing you got to do is you got to make progress every move. Sometimes you might not make progress. You might make a waiting move, but even that waiting move counts as a way for you to make progress. So in this final position, bishop g4, our friend Chessleonmaster timed out. But as you can see, my bishop got to g4. And I consider that very significant, because if you look at the knight on e3, it does a very powerful job, and this idea that you're moving back to f1 to threaten the pawn on h6, well, that's only one threat out of the so many things that white can achieve. So I would say, Chessleonmaster is doing great. But when it comes to planning, I guess, figuring out the ideas, whether it's a3 and b4 in this position, whether it's okay, I'm going to bring my knight to c3 and I'm going to push d5, whether it's following through with that. It's hard, right? Planning is hard, but it takes practice, it takes curiosity, and it takes a good darn passion. So, hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.